Good day, everybody. And thank you so much for always tuning in every Tuesday on LinkedIn live at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have you ever wondered why women of color or diverse backgrounds are or feel like they're an imposter? An article written by Rushika and Jody stated imposter syndrome is loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. It disproportionately affects high achieving people who find it difficult to accept their accomplishments. Many question whether they're deserving of accolades, from Michelle Obama to Sheryl Sandberg, who's the COO of Facebook, whom have confessed to experiencing it. You might also wonder what this has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. This illustrates the impact of systemic racism, classism, xenophobia, and other biases was categorically absent when the concept of imposter syndrome was developed. Many groups were excluded from the study, namely women of color and people of various income levels, genders, and professional backgrounds. Even as we know it today, imposter syndrome puts the blame on individuals without accounting for the historical and cultural contexts that are foundational to whom it manifests in both women and men. My name is Rochelle Carrier, and I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate. And for a living, I help thought provoking leaders implement DEI workshop plans in their workplace. And if you tune in, not only will you have better insight of our experiences, it will allow room for self reflection. My personal share is that imposter syndrome wears on our mental state. Ari Odaya, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, Odaya.
Odaya. She is the founder and chief visionary officer of Collectively Digital, with a rare combination of technical expertise and a decade of experience using artificial intelligence technology in media and marketing. Her professional and entrepreneurial experience is based upon a solid foundation in software development that she gained through her Microsoft certified solution developer training. She seeks to understand how AI and other emerging technologies can be leveraged to reduce the impact of unconscious bias on marginalized groups and communities. Ari, welcome.
Thank you.
So, what do you think causes imposter syndrome?
Well, for me, in my experience, what had caused imposter syndrome is being new to a space, right? To either a topic, a subject, um, and when I am in prior to remote work, and entrepreneurship when I was in my past roles and there was a lack of diversity, meaning there is either a lack of gender or racial diversity in this space. I often felt uncomfortable. Um, so so when it comes to speaking up or sharing ideas, I also did not feel comfortable in those spaces sharing that information. Um, or being outspoken. So that's what's contributed to my imposter syndrome, I believe. With others, I've heard various different experiences around being spoken over or dismissed, or um, or corrected, or again the lack of diversity in a space. Um, yeah.
The lack of diversity in the space. It's interesting. I see Ebony shaking her her head. So we're going to introduce Ebony Grimsley Vaz. She is the founder and CEO of Above, I'm sorry, Above Promotions, a digital marketing and public relations company in the Tampa, Florida area. She's also the author of the book entitled Because You're Small: Effective Marketing Strategies for Immediate Implementation, and a marketing instructor for Jolt, headquartered in Tel Aviv, Israel, and the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation Accelerator Program. She has been featured on MSNBC.com, Food and Wine, Social Media Today, Food Fanatics, BizBash, Adweek, PR Daily, Yahoo.com, The Retail Customer Experience, Business to Community, and more. While many of her clients are beyond the Tampa Bay area, she continuously gives back to her local community by organizing and volunteering at the Techstars Tampa Bay Startup Week, Hospitality Hackathon, Ignite Tampa Bay, Bar Camp, and the Tampa Bay Association of Black Journalists. Ebony, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So, to thread from what Ari said, and I saw you shaking your head. What do you feel what do you feel in your experience causes imposter syndrome?
Um, I definitely think there is a lot to it when you walk into a room and you realize that you're somewhat alone, and then you're not felt welcome at the same time. And we know that people tend to promote based off of who's in their circle. They tend to give jobs and give contracts to people who are in their circle. So it becomes a little bit disheartening when you go into spaces to introduce yourself and you're the only one, and it doesn't appear that anyone's interested in whatever you have to offer yourself. I think it's hard for us as being, I think it's hard for anyone when you're at the intersection of so many different um, areas where you're underrepresented as a woman, as a black woman. And then we even think about, whether you're in this area or you're from this neighborhood. It even goes even further than there. Depending on what environments and you're in, if especially in the tech space, if you're not from Stanford, you're not from MIT, you're not from Georgia Tech, that's even more. So there's so many, when you get to this part of being at the intersection of so many different areas of being not a part of the predominant, it's a little bit taxing on you, especially when you're not welcome into that space. So when Harry was saying that, I was like, yes, you're hitting the nail on the head. I feel it. I've experienced it, whether it was back when I was in corporate America to even now, just trying to go out and compete for larger contracts. So it's tiresome, being at that intersection. But what can we do but continue to soldier on, I guess.
Right. It's interesting. The it's There's a constant being made felt like the other.
Mhm.
And we had a show about that also a couple of weeks ago, or a few months ago, and you feel it automatically when you walk into the room. It's in the energy, right? It's in the energy, the look. They're very um
Microaggressions.
microaggressions, and those the gestures, the look. You see it all, and it makes you doubt yourself, right? You think
The
it
nods.
right, exactly. You question yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah, you question yourself. I'm going to introduce the two other guests because they're smiling and shaking their head, and I want them to participate as well. So Sade is a diversity and inclusion specialist, social activist, travel event, and media entrepreneur. At the age of 25, she packed a punch and founded Avienti Limited, a destination management company with 3 offices in Nigeria. Having traveled across the world in 2020 to Toronto, Canada, she didn't stop there. She currently holds a great position with YWIB and became a program DEI lead strategist. In the background, Sade has been recognized and nominated for various things over the years, some of which include the Future Awards, Africa Awards for Goodwill, 101 Young Achievers at the African Business Forum in Accra, Ghana in 2008, Goldman Sachs Fellowship, 100 Most Inspiring Women in Nigeria by the Inspiring Ladies Platform. We should have these here.
Yeah.
Oh, Mandela Washington Fellow, Young African Leadership Initiative, Under 40 CEO Platinum Award member, Ashoka Changemaker, West Africa. Sade, welcome.
Wow. Is that me?
That is you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's it's amazing. This is what we're talking about. You hear all these things about yourself and you're like, no, really, no, it doesn't. I honestly, it's for me, imposter syndrome is something I'm deliberately and intentionally removing from my vocabulary. It is a microaggression. It is based on oppression. As a woman, as a Black person, as someone who's been systemically, othered, it was designed to make you feel like you were not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to intentionally say, I see it. It doesn't apply to me. But the reality is, we are faced with situations, people, places where we just don't feel like this is the place for us because the systems are not created for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first reality. They were not created for people like you and me with our voices, our hair, our sound. It wasn't created for us. But we are going to take that space. I refused for someone to tell me what was created for me or not.
Yes.
I decide if I want to be in that space, not you. But a lot of young people, a lot of women, a lot of people of color, a lot of immigrants, they are faced with this every single day. So I know it's so important that we are having this conversation. It is super important because if we can find a way to eliminate it, we can get people who are coming to also understand why they need to eliminate it.
Right. So you have already taken your seat at the table.
I created my table. Sis, they're not giving you a seat at that table. Let me tell you that right now. No one is giving you a seat on any single table. Create your table. Bring your chair.
Bring your table and chair.
Bring a stool, something. You decide. If that's the table you want to be at, you go there and say, well, okay, there's no space for me. No problem. I have my own table. I have my own chair. Thanks.
Exactly. And create the space. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So let's introduce Kristen Goss. She is the attorney to hire when you desire to resolve all family legal matters outside of court. She has over 10 years of financial and communication experience that complement her legal experience as a collaboratively trained attorney and a Florida Supreme Court certified family mediator. For more information, you can always contact Ms. Goss and feel free to go to her website. Kristen, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. And it's nice to meet all these wonderful ladies, professionals. I love it. So I love what everyone has had to say. And Sade, just piggybacking off of what you mentioned, as a mother of 3 African-American girls, one is 9, one is 6, and one is 3 months. It's very important to me to take that seat at the table. Whatever I do, they're looking, they're observing, they're watching. And even in their interactions with other kids at school, certain things that they might come home and say, I can't do this, or so-and-so said I can't do this, or I don't like my curly hair, you know, whatever the case may be. It's very important to me to instill in them that confidence that they need when they go out in the world. They'll know that they belong and that they can take that seat at the table.
Right.
And so absolutely, I agree with everything. The experiences, you know, that we've gone through, but it's time to end that imposter syndrome. I definitely agree with that because we are worthy.
Right. We are worthy. And that's interesting that that you said that, in the sense it's exactly what Sade was saying. You know, we have to I'm piggybacking from what she's saying as well. We have to create that space. Once we know our value and understand who we are, and that we are experts and what we're bringing to the table, it's knowing that you're experts. We've all been doing what we've been doing forever. We're good at it, you know, and I think there might be a preconceived idea of waiting for an accolade, you know, right? And
Validation.
validation, exactly. And then so we work harder, and then you work harder, and then you work harder, and sometimes it might not be the space for us. You know, when you think about it, when God closes one door, he opens another. And sometimes you just have to close that door and walk away so you can open another, so other opportunities can come to you.
The challenge is knowing that that's what's happening,
Right.
not being, and that's what imposter syndrome does, right?
Right.
Where you don't necessarily realize that's what's happening. And you're seeking that validation because, quite frankly, we've been conditioned to seek validation from a system and construct that is actually in place um, to challenge our sense of self, our expertise, and challenge it in a way that is not fair, right? That's where that bias comes into place. Where I'm just recently realizing over the last 2 years how much of an expert I am compared to my counterparts, and that's because I've been able to um, gain some insights into my counterparts' abilities and deliverables, right? And even their knowledge and expertise, where I had not had that before. I had not had an opportunity to, you know, that competitor analysis that you have to do when you go into business. One of the things that I had a challenge with in this space in Minneapolis is doing that, because no one wants to share or talk to you, right? So you really don't know until you start engaging and collaborating with others in your space, your counterparts, and then you realize, oh wow, maybe I am an expert based on based on what I'm seeing. Oh wow, I didn't. And then you learn that you're actually more knowledgeable about a certain space. And I've made this pivot from marketing. The lines are blurred with tech now, as you very well know, Ebony. So, you know, much of the work that I did in my previous role, and with my company, Collectively Digital, I've since pivoted to SID Technologies. Pivoting that company to SID Technologies, which addresses biases within systems and institutions using artificial intelligence. So, you know, in this process, I'm learning and gaining more confidence in self because I've gained access to more information. I've realized that while I'm a anomaly in the tech space, and this space is pushing against me as an expert, and experts and Black women in tech does not go hand in hand. The fact that I'm with artificial intelligence, the fact that I'm not, writing coding in Python and building models and training a model, like negates my expertise somehow. But that's part of the education that I'm gaining, and the inspiration that I'm trying to give out, right? Is helping young women, especially young women of color, understand what they can do in the tech space, what they can contribute in the tech space, and what that space doesn't require you necessarily to traditionally be a coder. You can contribute to that space without actually like being a coder. Their tech spans the gambit, right? And it's
Right.
just not being a coder. And that's part of the bias in tech, is that there isn't enough diversity in tech. So we have algorithmic bias because of that, so I'll open it up to the others.
When you say you have algorithmic bias, can you explain that?
Well, it's the lack of diversity in the data sets that are used to build AI systems, right? So, for instance, let's say, and you've seen a lot of this conversation, Joy, with
The Justice League.
yep, with the Justice League and coded bias. She is one of the leaders behind the discovery of algorithmic bias in terms of facial recognition. So if a machine is trained to recognize human beings, but the images of human beings that were used to train this machine did not include brown pigmented human beings, it will not recognize brown people as human beings.
Right.
That makes sense. So that data of, when you train a machine to recognize woman, and all the images used to train that machine were lighter complected women, it will not recognize myself, as you can see from this camera, as dark as I am. It will not recognize me as a woman or a human being, right? So Joy has a lot of content around this. If you would like to dive into that, I would recommend going to the Justice League and following her and her brand, because they dive into this quite deeply. Feel free to follow Sid Technologies too. We are doing a lot of work from a communication standpoint.
Right.
I wanted to piggyback a little bit on that. I think a lot of people, like you said, the word woman, tech, experts is not really, a norm, because the defined people and names are not people like us.
No.
That's why I think it's so important. We need to define ourselves first. First, who are you? The journey to self is the most important in any single aspect, especially for people like us.
Absolutely.
Because the world has already been defined, and it's constantly defining, but it's not defining anything that,
it's not including us.
It's not including us.
Yeah.
So that means we cannot rely on the world. You should not rely on the world. I'm a Christian, so I mean that is, it's embedded in the Bible. I don't rely on the world to tell me who I am. I have to tell myself who I am. That helps you, when you define yourself, it helps you to not want or seek validation, to not care about any definition that fits or doesn't fit. it also helps you to identify spaces that you belong and you don't belong. There are some spaces I'm just not interested in, not because I cannot make. That's not me. I'm not interested. So I think, especially for women, we have to start to self-define. Take out that time and say, who am I? Who do I? Because it is in your hands. You cannot wait for anyone to tell you who or what you should be. Don't be interested in that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. You have to, because when we think about how long men were working, when women could not work, women could not vote. And then it was, okay, women, you can do it, but now people of color, you cannot enter this space. You cannot vote. So if we were to wait until we get invited to the table, when you think the original table makers are Caucasian men, if we sat around and waited until we got that invite, if we sat around and waited for the attaboys from them, we'll never get anywhere. So that's very important for you to define who you are, where you want to go. And then, like I said, bring your own table. Shoot, or maybe you don't even need a table. Bring your podium, bring your little soapbox, whatever it is. When I think about, and I know we always talk about Hamilton, but man, I'm telling you, it resonates with you when they say, just get me in the room. Right. That's it. I just want to be in the room where the decisions get made that set everything forward. So when I think about, and I mean, there's times where I still have to like, hold on, I'm questioning myself. Like, I don't want to go to this. I've been in places where a very large group of affluent people, and I'm like, oh, should I go? And my husband's like, you better get up and go. And I'm like, wait, what am I talking about? I belong in the room too. That's where the decisions get made. So we can't think that it's ever going to be a time. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to be a time in my lifetime where I see that we are honestly invited in. But I appreciate those that are not us, that are doing the work to invite us in. But I'm also knowing that those people are few and far between. Those authentic people who are really trying to be our allies are few and far between. So we can't wait for them. So I mean, I totally agree. You have to define who you are. You have to know where you want to go for yourself, and not just as a whole. Because when I think about, this is probably kind of weird tangent, but there's a Black woman who is like really big in the tiny home movement. And they even said like she's like the Harriet Tubman of that, because she's really helped to define that. She found her way and is doing tiny homes in her way, authentic to who she is. And I think that when we think about when we want to be in the room, being confident enough to show up as who we are. Like, my hair is natural. It's not straight, am I okay with going into this room with billionaires with my curly hair and maybe big afro? So you still have to know who you are and where you want to go, and be okay with getting there as who you want to be, and not just showing up as who you think your counterparts want you to be.
Right. It's interesting because that everybody segued into the second question without even realizing it. And yeah, I love it. And, are women more likely to experience imposter syndrome? Do you all believe that women are more likely? Why is that? Do you think, I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth, but, why do you think women are more likely to experience imposter syndrome? Anybody could answer that.
I mean, I think it first of all it's definitely the gender. Generally, women have been positioned by society, by our environment, by culture, to be this multitaskers of home, family. They believe that women somehow, there was one joke where they said, find you a praying woman. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like a mother's prayer reaches God faster. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. So God has a megaphone just for women's prayers. I'm just like, what? But it's women have been put in a box for such a long time. And I think that's the main reason. A lot of us grow up with boxes. We are supposed to be A, B, C, D, E. That's it. And we don't even know how much we have accepted the boxes that have been thrown upon us, because they've been given to us by family most times, by people who raised us most times. And we believe or trust those people. Those are the people we know growing up. So they tell us this is the way it's supposed to be, and we believe them. So it's a journey where you're telling yourself, no, that doesn't work for me. So it doesn't, because it's not like the things that our parents and our caregivers, it's not like what they gave us was wrong or bad. It just doesn't work for everyone. That's right. And then you have to ask yourself, I don't want to have kids. The day I said that on Instagram, it was a hell storm. I'm not even joking. People were going crazy. I was trending for 3 days straight on Instagram because I said I don't want to have kids. My body, it was crazy.
I can just hear your Yoruba mother.
As a Nigerian, that is unheard of. They don't care if you can take care of the kids, take care of yourself. But the fact that you have a womb and you don't want to have kids. So I think that really has contributed to why women are constantly fighting themselves. Because there is a certain growth that happens as you keep on going, especially when you are a working woman. Certain growth. I'm not saying that, stay-at-home moms, because even a stay-at-home mom is working. That is work. Mm-hmm. So I think when you start to work, you start to grow into yourself. You start to question a lot of decisions. And you're not just questioning decisions, you're questioning inbuilt things that came with birth. Mm-hmm. Those things are hard to say, no, this is not me. So I think that's why women generally are fighting more with this syndrome than even men. Men do fight it, but men have been given they have a reign in terms of what they can do. Men haven't been limited as much to what they can do. They've been told that they can't do a couple of things, but they've been told they can do a lot of things. So it's not much of a battle compared to women, in my opinion.
They have a running start on us. They created everything. They have a running start, so they can set the rules.
Yeah, I don't know. They created everything. They were taught to believe they created.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think women have been conditioned, and society in general has been conditioned, and you see this over time from marketing, communication, from media. From books, Dr. Seuss's books were pulled earlier this year. At least 6 titles were pulled this year because of the biases and stereotypes in the books. Growing up, women you always see women in their little aprons, and it's usually either a Caucasian woman, and she's in her apron, pearls, everything in the kitchen, vacuuming. And when you see commercials, ads today, you tend to see more women performing household type duties, right? And there's an increase now to marketing campaigns that show women as powerful, strong, but there's still a battle as we're conditioned to believe that this is the role that we and value that we have. Whereas, as my other panelists have mentioned, men are, no matter what, background they have, they've been raised to want more, do more, try more, right? Where women have been taught to, anything that we do that is more, it's either
too much,
crazy, stay in your lane, you're not good at this, that's not for you, you're better over here, you're better at this. And we're constantly being told what we should do versus discovering that for ourselves, right? And trying things and failing. And I feel like when women fail, at least in my experience, failures and mistakes that I've made in my past roles have led to much of that imposter syndrome, because I've watched my counterparts be allowed to fail right? And it's been a experience of learning, whereas my failures and mistake have had huge consequences: loss of job, criticism from pretty much everyone on the team, especially leadership, perception of my abilities, and the quality and value that I bring to any organization and team has been put to question from a single mistake. Um, I mean, corporate bullying for me had a lot to do with my imposter syndrome in those spaces, and ultimately led to me deciding to build my own table and seat
Mm.
and team and pretty much my whole entire world because I just could not or had a lot of challenges falling in line and
Right. And
uh,
keeping up.
and
Mm,
keeping up.
you can't keep up.
I can't keep up
No.
if the playing field is not level.
Mhm.
There's no way to keep up when I have a hill to climb and my counterpart has, a plane in their journey and fairly little stumbling blocks, right? Um, so I I absolutely agree with Sade and Ebony. It's women definitely are at a disadvantage when it comes to that, but we need to build ourselves up. And this is a great platform to do that. And to have these conversations are very important. I have close friends that I talk to that have to remind me when I get into these headspaces.
Mm.
I'm in this headspace space of I can't,
Mhm.
and they're like, "What do you mean you can't? You are doing it already." What you mean you can't? You're already doing it. And they point certain things out that have felt like failures, right? And a great grand failure as successes. And it's almost like resetting your brain to see what we've been taught to accept as our failings, as our inabilities, as actually our expertise.
Mm.
You know.
I definitely agree. I want to kind of go against the grain a little bit and say I think that men, I'm sticking up for the men who may be listening, might suffer from imposter syndrome in a different way.
Yeah.
Um, because they are told you can do this, you can do that, like not too many limitations on them. They can tend to be the experts,
Hmm.
but deep down inside, that confidence, and you may not tap into that until you get to, really know who they are. But I definitely agree with what all of you ladies have said as far as women. I think for us, it improve or be better because, oftentimes you don't get that contract, or you don't get that, you know, account or that client without working 10 times harder a lot of times. So,
Right. And it's interesting. I think it's a conversation that we can have for a very long time, and it's again to recondition
mhm.
the dialogues that are constantly playing in our head, you know? And going back to what everyone's saying and what you said, Kristen, also, the maybe that's not having or being told that you can do everything, or being told that constantly, I think lends itself to being confident. you know if you're given that space, Just like my daughter said the other day, oh, she wants to fix broken bones. I said, sure, you could fix broken bones. I said, you're going to, you can fix broken bones at the hospital. And then the other day she said, oh, I like to play with everybody's hair. I want to be a hairstylist. I said, sure, you could be a hairstyle. So I'm leaving it open. I'm not putting a box around her. So whatever she says that she comes up with whatever, profession she wants to be in. And I say, sure. So she knows that there's the ability and she has the capability to be able to do anything that she wants. That I'm not going to say, oh no, you can't be such and such because you won't make such and such, or no, this is not a place for you because this is, so there's she sees that the possibilities are endless. And I think that's where we come in also as, moms or caregivers or wife or spouse or individual person or just a regular woman, where we have to say, this is who we are. This is what we're bringing to the table. And this is what we're capable of. And if you're receiving a lot of pushback, then that means that's not the place for you. There's somewhere that someone is going to accept you and your expertise and your values and your ambition to be able to utilize you as an ally. I have an ebook coming out on allyship as an ally. Who are our allies? And if we don't, we're our own allies or advocates, right? If no one can be our allies, then we have to be our own ally and fend for ourselves and be our own advocates. So I think it's something that we need to deprogram ourselves to think, like Sade says, and then what Ari was saying as well. You created your table, and Kristen, you said the same. You created the table, you brought the table and a chair, and then somebody said, well, you can bring a stool. I'm bringing everything I have and I'm going to sit down. I'm going to be in that meeting room. Ebony, you said the same thing. You want to be among the decision makers. So if that means we have to keep knocking on doors until we find that one door that says, yes, you've been the person that we've been looking for a long time, then that's where you're welcomed.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, even if we look at it from like a marketing standpoint, when you have a customer, you have a certain customer that wants and is going to love your product. And so it's kind of the same thing with yourself. There's a certain environment, a certain place that you're going to be at. And it takes, when you are 19 years old, the odds of you finding that place is going to be very slim. But as you get older, you start developing, you start realizing like, hey, the things that the elders taught us when we were growing up, that was good for them at that season. But the season that I'm in my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, it's totally different. You're going to evolve. And I think as you get older, you begin to find like, this is the environment that I want to be in. And so I kind of look at, your life as finding that right target audience, finding that right thing, that product, what is the product that I want to be at the end of the day? Like when I go to a place, do I want people to feel like they need the stuff that I offer them? And so when I look at it that way, it makes sense to me that I can go to this event and not feel as welcome as if I go to this event. This event, I may have to quantify and qualify my background as to why I should be here, as to where I go to someone else, go to another event or a place, a room, and I'm celebrated. Right. So it's, I think as you get older, you begin to realize what is the environment that you can thrive on and not just survive in.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's something, that Rochelle, you said, and I also, one thing I've realized with social media is, as they say in Nigeria, market day for everybody. That's broken English. They say, there is somebody for you. That Absolutely. Is the reality. I've realized that when I go on LinkedIn, when I go on TikTok, I see the most different sorts of people and they have the following. It is just, the most important thing is be you, show up, show out. You will find your people, you will find your space, you will find your network. But the thing is, a lot of us are thinking, oh my goodness, maybe I should show up as something else or someone else, just to get there faster. I need this job now. I need this now. And there's nothing wrong with that. Short term, maybe you want to adjust to fit in some rooms. As someone who moved to Canada last year and I literally started my life from scratch all over again, I had to redefine every single thing I was, like literally in this new country. I had been put in situations where all I had to do was, for a better word, be white. That's all I had to do. And I'm like, no. I lost some money. I lost some a seat at the table. But I was like, you know what? No. I've reached a point where I don't want to shrink myself. I have to remind myself that I'm not even comfortable when I do shrink myself, because I have tried. I think everyone at one point has tried to be a certain way. I'm not comfortable. I don't sleep at night when I can't show up. There is somebody for you. You don't have to change yourself. Trust me. There are too many people in the world. You will find where you matter, where your voice matters, where like in Nigeria, they say they'll be rushing you like Indomie. They'll be rushing you. So that's where, for me, that's what I always want to try to speak to, especially women. Just be an excellent version of yourself.
Right.
No one else is that. That is your superpower.
Agreed.
I agree. Do you think that we fear success?
I think so. I mean, one, Sade, absolutely on your last point, because I am just after, I think a lot, this may have had a lot to do, and I believe it has a lot to do with what happened last year with George Floyd. I shed that desire and that overwhelming thought that if I did not code switch, I could not attain success, because that was the only time, really, truly, that I could penetrate some of these spaces, is when I was completely not me whatsoever, right? And in being myself, I have been shut out of spaces, and that's okay, because quite frankly, my mental health is more important, and I refuse to continue to subject myself to harm in order to fit into mental harm, in order to be accepted, in order to thrive. And I think that for me, there's a certain level of fear of success and failure, right? Because there are times where I have actually seen my successes as failures. And that is something I'm starting to understand and kind of working through. Because I guess the fear of success is what leads to failure, like real failure, right? And and for me, this is my experience. My fear of failure is what has led to success, if that makes sense.
I keep going back to age. And I think as we get older, we define success a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was younger, I felt like success was getting that atta girl.
Right. The validation.
Yeah, that validation. But now success feels a little like I had to go through an environment or a process that left some scars for me,
Mm-hmm.
for the person that was coming up behind me that looks like me. and comes from my background. And so although I did not succeed in that space, I was not the one that got that validation. If I can look back and see that someone else came behind me and was able to do better, like that success, I think success just gets, yeah, that's success. And it gets redefined as you get older. And then you start to think about, you know, when there are incidents of like high profile, like George Floyd or anything else, you're constantly reminded of, I'm on a journey, I'm on a mission, I have to make things better for myself, my family, keeping my mental health. But in knowing that, I know that there's somebody else that's going to come behind me,
Right.
and I might not finish this mission, but somebody else will. And I think that that's what's a little bit different with success. But when I think about fearing success, I fear more the path of it than I do the actual success. So, you know, when we talk about that code switching and trying to fit in, like, am I going to be satisfied that I switched just to get to this spot? You know, that path for me, is that the path that I want? Or is it going to be a path that's going to have more journeys? Like, how many beatings and our scars am I going to want to take to get to this end goal? And so I think that's the fear for me, is the path that I'm going to end up taking to get there for that level of success. Right. Or what I define as success.
Like re-traumatizing yourself. And I think for me last year, I defined what happiness looked like for me. And it did not include code switching. It looks like me being who I am, right? Being airy, being the quirky, awkward, you know, corny, airy that I am.
Yeah.
And if anyone has a problem with it, then that's their problem, not mine.
They will adjust. They will adjust.
They will adjust. That is their problem, not mine. And my job is to continue to be true to myself, be true to what makes me happy, what brings me joy, what makes me excited, and being unlike myself, acquiescing to what others want me to speak like, look like, behave as, does not make me happy. So why am I doing it? And quite frankly, it has not really led to that grand success that I'm looking for. So why am I continuing to do this? And I'm realizing, being who I am, all of me, you know, the complexity that is airy is good enough, and actually, quite frankly, is leading to the success that I envisioned for myself, you know? So
I found that now, as I'm, again, going back to this age thing, is that no is helping me to realize that that is such a successful tool. Like, no is a full sentence. It's a full stop. It is empowering. It needs no other explanation.
Who did the song? No. I can't remember. There was a song. It was a group. A girl.
Oh, that was Destiny's Child, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right.
That came immediately to mind. I was like,
and you're right. I mean,
it's a boundary.
For me, success is showing up. You know, I'm saying you cannot thrive until you're 100% yourself. It's hard. It's a harder path, to be honest, because even you don't even know yourself. You know, you're still trying to shed all these things. So it's a hard path, because every day you're finding out something new about yourself. But like you said, Ari, I've literally never flourished the most until I was myself.
Right.
Whenever I'm trying to fit into spaces, I'm struggling. I'm always struggling. Always. I will get through it. I might have, you know, on the outside looks like, oh yeah. But internally I'm like, I just manage. But when I'm 100% myself, it comes so easy. Everything is easy. And I'm just like, why don't I want easy? Easy is not always the easiest thing, to be honest.
And I would say I've made more money being myself than someone else. it may have taken me longer, but I made more money being myself. So Sade, you on it, girl.
That's it. That's it. I think the path is hard, whether we like it or not. Again, because like I said, it involves a lot of self-processing. And for people who have not even started that journey to self, it sounds easy. Journey to self. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Because you have to come and have a come to Jesus moment with yourself. That's hard.
And those moments come with experiences.
Yes.
Right? You haven't lived life until you've lived your experiences.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the experiences. Some are good, some are bad, some are really bad, some are, traumatic. And then what did you get out of those experiences? So without those lived experiences, it's funny. There's a client I spoke to last week, and one of the things they were looking for was lived experiences. And I thought, yeah, you've come to the right person. I've lived 25 years plus 25 years of experience, which I like to call it because I'll be 50 in November. And I think those are lived experiences. Those experiences brought me burnouts. The experiences brought me to stop code switching, and racial inequity, gender inequity, salary inequity. I mean, all those things I've lived. I've been at the table where those things were pushbacks. I was not eligible for certain things that other counterparts were. And if we don't go through that, then who are we really? How do we become better when we know how bad it really was? And how much we can learn, not how bad it really was, but in a sense that take those experiences and overcome them. And, while shedding all those layers to be able to better understand who we really are in our core, like Sade was saying, and Ebony was saying, once you're your authentic self, you're no longer tired. You're making more money. It might take longer, but you're getting there. And it's so much easier. It's like relationships. Who said relationships needed to be hard? They could be easy. They could be easy. And the relationships with us, it has to come first. The relationship we have with ourselves, how do we see ourselves, will mirror how others see us.
125%.
Right?
People want us to show up as ourselves. People don't want to be sitting there talking to themselves. They don't want, think about it. You don't marry yourself because that would just be boring. You'd just be irritated. You don't pick.
It usually ends up in a divorce if you marry.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying.
But people in the workplace and your friends, you think about your group, your circle, everybody has their own different unique things. And it's when you appreciate it. So that's why I appreciate when I see moms like Kristen and when they share, like they're trying to show up to show their kid, like Rochelle, you're telling your kid, you can do whatever. Yes, you can do it. And when that generation grows up and we're gone, they'll be like, there was something, they'll look back at this video and be like, there were challenges like that. We didn't have that. So
they're not boxed. They're not restricted in their mindset, right? They exist in a much more evolved state that we don't exist in. And that's what I love about the new generation, right? The younger generation, I mean, around this whole, the movement around equity and inclusion and diversity, a lot of young folks are putting foot to the ground. Like, they are really driving, not even driving, demanding. It's kind of like ride or die. I mean, they are the ride or die generation. Either you are going to give them the equity and inclusion, they are not about it. And I think we've seen a certain level of the great resignation that has followed. And that's on all sides. You know what I mean? When I say that the younger folks they're not having it.
Right.
And I'm envious of that. And I think it's because of parenting like Kristen and Rochelle, I think that your parent, that type of parenting is the next generation, makes the next generation where we need to be, right? How we were brought up, we were brought up in a box.
Right.
To a very limiting box, a very small box,
Right.
So yeah.
It's interesting. I spoke to a friend of mine. She's Pakistani. She's Muslim, and she was saying we were having a discussion exactly about that, and she said, "I was groomed to serve my husband," and she just realized this after 25 years of being married, and now she's discovering who she is, and she's rebelling. She's like, no, I'm not cooking. I'm not cleaning. We're going to get someone to do this. I'm going back to work. I want to make my own money, get my own credit card. I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And her mom was groomed that way. Her mom got married at these are arranged marriages. Her mom was married at 16. She gave birth at 17 to twins. She has 60-year-olds as her sisters, as my girlfriend has 60-year-old siblings. But she realized that she was groomed. And when she looks at her 4 sons, she has 4 boys. And when she looks at her 4 boys, she says, they all want to be doctors or engineers. They already know what they want. And if I was told that I could do whatever I want, maybe I wouldn't be a housewife. She said she had a lot of aspirations that her dad said, oh, no, that's going to be too hard for you. She wanted to be an architect. And her dad said, no, it's too hard. And then she said that dream was, just last year, she just started, she opened her company in interior designing, but she remembers the dialogues with her parents. Oh, no, you can't do that. It's too hard. So somewhere along the line, we've been conditioned. I mean, bless the heart of our parents. It's no discredit to them, but it's the grooming. There's a grooming there that's conditioned that we don't even realize.
Yeah. It's a culture.
It's a culture.
It's a pervasive culture.
Right.
It's when we look at how women in general from all sides are raised and conditioned, we're raised to become housewives, to serve a man, to be, subservient, and then when you think of the history around Black people in general, people of color, there's a whole colonization that we have to take, and there's a conditioning as part of that colonization,
right,
that we uphold ourselves, and that which is why we're constantly seeking this validation or feeling that we need to be validated. It's by design. It's historical, right? So and shifting, and it's very hard for us to shift as people of color because there is hundreds of years of conditioning and for us to behave and think this way. So we as people of color, we as women, we have a lot of unlearning to do.
Unlearning, you said.
Yeah, we have a lot of unlearning to do. And I hope through the technology that we're building at Sid Technologies that we are able to help society unlearn some of these bad habits and biases that we have within us that makes it so challenging to exist nowadays, right?
To exist. That's a big word. Ladies, we can talk about this for probably another hour. I was so blessed and so lucky that you all showed up. You all show up as your authentic selves. And I appreciate you all so much for making this happen, because without you, I would have not been able to undertake this huge undertaking. And believe it or not, I had this discussion before. public speaking and being able to come, and every single time I press that live button, I tell myself, you can do this, Rochelle. It's the hardest thing for me to do, but it's the place where I feel so comfortable, and I'm so proud of everybody. I'm proud of what we're doing and how we've become and how we're allies. We can
Mhm.
always lean on each other. If we need anything, we're always here for one another. It's time for us, to have these transparent dialogues and conversations, so we can share our turmoils and our successes and
Mhm.
how we got to where we got. It's
Mhm.
never easy. And know that my keynote is, I always try to limit my own bias as much as possible by interviewing women I didn't know and sticking to the same set of questions. And it would have been impossible to completely remove my own personal experience from the discussion. So without it, I would have not been able to undertake this in the first place. So continue having these, transparent and courageous dialogues with people around you. Try to figure out how you feel about all of this. How you resolve those questions will be distinctive to you as women of color and of diverse backgrounds. This will reflect your personal and professional experiences through your communities and your workspace. But what's essential is that you always, always ask your questions, and always know that the questions can be answered if you ask someone who's of representation, who has a lived experience. So remain open to the conversations, go through your process. It's crucial, and authenticity is key. By being true to ourselves, we fundamentally can create that transformation. So take your drawbacks, turn them into something others can find valuable. My favorite is give yourselves grace. We have to continue celebrating our successes. I never celebrate my successes. And thank you for reminding me that I need to start celebrating my successes. I always think I have to keep going, keep going, keep going,
Mhm.
keep going, keep going, and I don't stop. And it's okay, let's celebrate what you just did. You just did 100 things and you're still not celebrating what you just did.
Mhm.
So we need to give ourselves that grace. Keep having those courageous conversations about DEI. Where these dialogues will take us, we don't know, but at least we're here to help. Thank you again so much, ladies. It's been
Thank you.
such a pleasure
Thank you.
to
Thank you
have
so
all of
much.
you on the panel.
Thank
Thank you.
Appreciate it.